Welcome to a special video requested by someone who enjoys watching these videos. Someone whom I do not know, but I enjoy very much the interaction with anyone that appreciates what I'm doing. So this viewer wanted me to talk more about Dracula Has Risen from the Grave from 1968. It's the fourth Dracula Hammer film. Christopher Lee as Dracula, as he usually is. And this one features Rupert Davies. Davies plays a Monsignor in this film. He had been in The Witchfinder General. He was also in a few other horror films and many other films of other genres. We also have Barry Andrews in this film, which if you happen to watch these videos in order, he was just in Satan's Skin. That actually made me appreciate him and this film a little bit more. Very different role, very different vibe. In Satan's Skin, he was basically like a farmhand who had not a major role, but a very serious role in a serious film. And here, he's basically the protagonist, I would say. Yeah, he probably gets more screen time than anyone else in this whole movie, even though he's like fifth build. This also has Michael Ripper, one of my favorites, as playing. He's playing what he usually plays, which is a landlord or the owner of a bartender. That's basically what he's doing here. He actually owns a tavern that's also a bakery. So he's like a baker by day, and then he serves the drinks and runs the bar during the evening. So anyway, what's going on? So the first time I saw this, I gave it a 6 out of 10. I watched all the Hammer Draculas basically in a row. After watching the first one, which I thought was really good, and then the second one, which I thought was like good but not as good as the first one, especially because Dracula's not in it. Then I watched the third one, and the second one is Brides of Dracula. The third one is Dracula Prince of Darkness, and the Dracula Prince of Darkness, Christopher Lee doesn't even speak in it. I had read that he wasn't even that excited to play Dracula over and over again. And in this one, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, he does speak in it, but like not that much. I think the first time I saw this, I was a little disappointed that Christopher Lee wasn't really in it that much. Second time around, I'm okay with it because Rupert Davies and Barry Andrews are both very good in it. And the story is good. Also, I think the first time I saw it, I'd have probably seen like 15 or 20 Hammer films. At this point, I've seen like 65 Hammer films. And I just really appreciate the aesthetics there. It's almost comforting to me now. I've watched so many hours of Hammer films. I've seen Christopher Lee and Michael Ripper and so many things that just like putting anything with them in it on, it's just more enjoyable. I also just really like the crisp, of course it's restored, but the crisp, clean production values are really pleasing. There's a lot of stuff from the 60s that even in whatever most updated version today is really rough. The Hammer films feel very different than a lot of other stuff, especially American stuff, which was like rough and I don't know. It's just, these feel like really, really well done. So, second time around, I give it a 7 out of 10. It was almost an 8, but there are some flaws here, which I think my friend who requested this out there, it might be a little disappointed because I think he said this was the last Hammer Dracula film that he really liked. Although there are multiple ones that come later that I like more, like Taste the Blood of Dracula and The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires are easily better to me than this one is. And anyway, so this one, first problem is right at the beginning. I take that back. Right at the beginning, we have a girl stuffed up in a bell, in a bell tower. That was cool. The opening sequence is probably the coolest sequence of the entire movie. a boy who kind of works in a church, takes care of a church. He looks up this rope, and there's blood dripping down the rope, and he goes up and finds this girl stuffed in the bell. He freaks out. The Monsignor comes in and finds it, and then, oh no, I'm sorry, not the Monsignor, but the priest comes in and finds it, and then he freaks out. He goes to the local bar. I think it's in Carlsbad. Which I think is part of the German Empire in this time period here. He goes and, the townspeople don't like Dracula. The castle's up on the hill in the town, and everyone's freaked out because, they're thinking about the first set of events that happened in the first Dracula. And, I guess that happened 12 months before this. So they're not too excited about Dracula's return. Then for the next 20 minutes, it's basically this priest, who's an older guy. I forget who plays the priest, but he's not in anything else of note. He was okay in the movie. And then the Monsignor, who shows up from Kleinenberg, which I should have looked up how far Carlsbad is from Kleinenberg, because both those places still exist, I believe. He shows up, the Monsignor, who, for those of you who are not up on Catholic hierarchy, the Monsignor is above a priest. It's kind of like the district manager of the clergy or whatever. So anyway, he goes up to Dracula's castle and he seals it with a giant metal cross and sticks this giant metal cross on the door, which he thinks is keeping Dracula in, except Dracula wasn't in the castle at the time, which he doesn't know. So he's actually keeping Dracula out of the castle, which is obviously bad news, because then Dracula's going around all these other places. Another cool little sequence that I totally had forgotten about, because it probably lasts about 5 seconds, is that Dracula digs up a grave and tips out this rotten corpse of a woman and uses that coffin. Now I don't know if that's allowed for vampires. Are you allowed to take somebody else's casket and just use it as your own? I thought you were supposed to have soil from your homeland or whatever in there. He's just borrowed somebody else's coffin. So I don't know. Anyway, another thing that I don't think I realized the first time, I don't know, I just wasn't paying as much attention to it. He goes to Kleinenberg, which is where the Monsignor's from, which is not where his castle is. And he puts his grave in the basement of Michael Ripper's bakery. Now, if you watch the movie, the bakery tavern looks like a regular tavern or bar, and then in the basement, part of the basement is just where they bake stuff. And then another part of the basement, it's a total dungeon. I'm not sure why it looks like this. I think the first time I saw this movie, I thought he was in his castle, which is definitely not the case, but it looks like the inside of a castle dungeon. So I don't know why that's in the basement of a bakery. Anyway, he's in there, unbeknownst to Michael Ripper or Barry Andrews, who both live and work in the building. They have no clue this is going on. Dracula ends up seducing and feasting on the barmaid, whose name I forget, but she was in, I think she was in Torture Garden, and I think that was another Freddie Francis film. Freddie Francis directed this, by the way. I forget if I said that. Terrence Fisher directed the first 3 Dracula films, and I think maybe he got sick, so Freddie Francis had to take over on this one. Anyway, Freddie Francis does a good job, but back to the plot. Basically, Dracula wants revenge on the Monsignor for sealing his castle, so he goes after the Monsignor's niece, who also happens to be Barry Andrews' girlfriend. And by the way, Barry Andrews is an atheist, which I'm sure in, 1898 or whenever this is supposed to take place was extremely, unpopular opinion to be an atheist. Of course, at some point in the movie, he meets the Monsignor, lets him know he's an atheist, and the Monsignor doesn't like that, so there's this tension there. Anyway, Barry Andrews ends up saving the day, to make a long story short. That's pretty much it. If Christopher Lee was in it more, I probably would have liked it more, but Michael Ripper is great in it. Michael Ripper always plays a small role, but he gets a good amount of screen time in this, which makes me happy. Barry Andrews is great. Rupert Davies is good. The movie's good overall. I just feel like for a Dracula movie, Dracula should be in it more. Also, Christopher Lee is such a good actor, and for the second Dracula film in a row, you don't really see that. I guess he wasn't excited, so he didn't want to be in it that much or something like that. I don't know, like, Christopher Lee is an amazing actor. He probably speaks like 10 lines in this film. And another problem I have with this film is that they've turned Dracula into someone, and this isn't a lot of these Hammer Dracula films. Dracula is someone who is weak, has a million weaknesses. He can't go near a cross. In the third film, he died by falling in water. He actually gets released from that water in this film accidentally. The priest falls and cracks his head open on some ice, and then, because it's almost so ridiculous, he hits his head on ice. His head bleeds a little bit. The blood trickles down the ice, which then cracks because his head hit it, and then into Dracula's mouth, and that revives Dracula. And there's a weird scene where Dracula moves his lips around because blood got in there. It's silly, really. And then he can't go in the sun. Obviously, this is standard vampire stuff, but the sunlight hurts him. Garlic hurts him. The cross hurts him. Getting a stake to the heart hurts him. Just everything hurts. And he's always trying to get women. But whenever a guy shows up, he gets scared and often tries to run away. He is apparently so weak that he can't even confront a human man. So, I don't know. The portrayal of these films are great, but the portrayal of Dracula in most of them just shows that he always needs the help of a human. He always is got all these weaknesses that he has to avoid, and this and that. There's other vampire films out there where the vampire is a very strong figure and a menace, and no one can defeat him. But Dracula's defeated over and over and over again in these Hammer films. The only thing that really makes him scary is that he keeps coming back. In this one, though, ironically, against what I just said, he gets a major stake to the heart at one point, and it doesn't hurt him. So I don't know why that role gets to be broken, but a small cross will make him go running. But he gets completely staked in the heart by Barry Andrews. It barely phases him. But then later, he ends up falling off a cliff after a very brief struggle. He gets tipped off a cliff and then lands on the giant cross that then impales him. Now, the best part about that is the fact that it sets up Taste the Blood of Dracula, which I like much better than this. And Veruca Salt's dad from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which I actually just watched today also, in Taste the Blood of Dracula, as you may know, because I talked about it in another video, Veruca Salt's dad finds Dracula's blood dust and sells it, and it ends up leading to another resurrection. So anyway, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave did grow on me the second time. I raised it from a 6 to a 7, and it was almost an 8. But I need a little more Christopher Lee, and probably not 20 minutes of two old guys climbing a mountain at the beginning of the film. So there you go. This was a nice excuse to rewatch a good film and to appreciate it deeper, so thank you for the request. And look out for the next video that'll be coming out in a few days. See ya!